Well, hello, and good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you might be. Um, I've been asked to do a video on how I do my framing or matting or borders, or call it what you will. And been asked to do a video on that. So this is my first attempt, and we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start off with a slideshow of various edges and framing that I've done to some images, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. Let's see if we've got this set up right. This is a basic one-liner with a wide mat. Basically, what I do, it's really very simple. It's basically actions changing the canvas size by very small increments. Quarter inch, eighth of an inch, 16th of an inch. Then selecting colors to increase the canvas, and it gives you nice square corners. Then I can then take a magic wand and select that border and create a separate layer. Now this gives me an opportunity to control U, or then go into bevel and emboss and some various things. I even do where I slide it over onto a blank canvas and then do a drop shadow at 0 and actually give it a three-dimensional look, because like it's floating off the back canvas. The patterning that you see in some of those is done with bevel and emboss and then texture. This is an example of the floating over the top, where you do a drop shadow and then spread the shadow out from behind the image on a blank canvas. So this gives you a rough idea of what we're going. I'll just do some three basics and give you the ideas, because the more you experiment, the more you play, the more interesting everything becomes. And so we'll give it a shot here. Let me close that, and let's bring up PhotoShop, and we'll go get us an image. Let's just we'll go to libraries and pictures, and just one of the family things here, just regular snapshots. Let's see what we can do with this one. It's just a little bit out of focus, but we'll go ahead and try it. Make it a little bit smaller, about like that. Now, my action is right here, and it's like an 02 or an 04. And now I've checked my colors, and I might be able to use those colors. That might be pretty good. I'm going to reverse them by hitting the X key and putting that burnt orange on top, and I'll hit the 0.04 inch action. It's very small. Most times, if I want to go back, I just hit my Control Z until I get it back down to the thin area that I want. I can then hit the X key and bring up that off-white, and we'll go to 8/10 and twice, 3 times. All I gotta do is hit the X key and hit it again, and I've brought that color back in and hit the X key, and I can just sit there and keep going until I got the masking. Now then, I'm going to select my magic wand, and I'll select this outer edge, do a right click, and say save as a layer via copy. Once I have that, if you look at your layers palette, all I have is that outer space. So now if I go to layer style and go to bevel and emboss, I can visually change that the size of that frame and how I want it to appear. That's a little strong, but I'll leave it there only to show you. I go up and change and go to an outer bevel and come up with something totally different. I can deepen an inset. Let's go into down position. And now this thing is set up for using global light, and I'm going to set it for 0. Now when I say size, it gives me one thing. If I change it back to up and I change the size, I can create something entirely different. Every time you do something in here and change it, you get a different effect on your mat. My favorite is pillow emboss, because now when I say size or depth, I'm actually creating an edge on that frame. I just do it over and over and over again, doing different styles and different types of things. Let's go back to layer style, and I'll show you what I was talking about here on the bevel and emboss. I can go to here and go to texture. Whatever texture that I have selected over here transfers over to my outer matting. If it's too sharp, I simply go into Gaussian blur and soften it up a little bit. So that's basically the simplest way that I know to show how to create these matting and borders. Obviously, let's just talk about one other thing. If we go to image size, this is a 11, called a 12 by 8.5 at 300 pixels. This is 25 megs. Obviously, you don't want to transmit 25 megs over to grandma or grandpa, so how do we get it down? It's very simple. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to change that to 72, and 72 reduces it to 1.47 megs. You can say OK. Boom. That's got it shrunk down to where I can send it over the internet without any problem. One other thing that I'd like to share is if I go to image size and if I take the constraint off, okay, this is only 2/10 from 12, so we'll change that to 12 and say OK, and this is a little over 8, so let's drop it back to 8, so I've got a consistent 12 by 8 image, and I say OK. You see I changed the format a little bit, but not enough to make a big difference. But I now have an 8 by 12 image that you can buy a frame for. If you leave it off some weird size, now you might have a problem after you have it printed. Let's talk about the action. Let's go down here to border edges. That's my action place. And I'm going to go up here and say new action, and new action, and this action will be a 1-inch border. 1-inch border and record. Now I'm recording everything that I've done, so I go up here to image, canvas size, and this relative button has to be checked, and I'm going to say, what did I say, 1 inch? Okay, so let's go 1 inch and 1 inch and say okay. Boom. It's whatever your foreground color was. I can say stop the action. Now I can do a Control Z and eliminate that like that. Now when I run a 1-inch border action, and I'll change the background color to white and run that action, I now have a 1-inch white border. Let's do one more. We'll go back to actions and go back to border edges and say new action, and this time we're going to call this 0.075. So let's go 0.075 and record. And now we are recording, so we'll go back to image size, canvas size, and 0.075 and 0.075 and say OK. You didn't see it do much, so what we'll do is stop this action and go to our 0.75, change it to black by hitting the X key, and rerun the action. Now you see a 0.075 black line outlining everything. If I want to select this white area, right click, via copy, layer style, and I can do a drop shadow. My computer's taking a little bit of time to do that. Watch how I can build up an inner shadow around that white square or the white spread that I have. I don't want any distance. If I make the size, distance is 0, spread just lightly, and size just a tick, and say OK. So I've added some dimension into my matting. That's basically it, guys. If you have any questions, drop me a note at bdroberts.com. That's bdroberts@bdroberts.com. And like I say, this may be a little rough, but this is only the second video of this type that I've made, and I'm still learning that. So in the technology age, it's constant. You're learning all the time. Just don't ever give up. Just keep, as Woody says, shoot from the heart, and hit the registration. Follow me along. I'll be happy to answer any other questions privately. Talk to you soon.